Miranda, I'm interested in let's just reprise recently. Mr. Gove talking about life outside the EU unless the Europeans give us back lots of our powers. Mr. Cameron kind of implying but not quite saying, I'll give you a referendum. The government policy, or the Conservative side, to opt out of EU measures on law and order and others. What's your party making of all this?
Well, clearly, these are not positions that are Liberal Democrat positions,
that
are they?
Bit I've worked out.
Right. Jolly good. That's why they pay you the big bucks. But
they
do. I think, you know, I think what it seems to me is that this is the moment when fear of UKIP in the Tory party starts to actually affect the British national interest. I don't see how you can look at this proposition on opting out of EU justice powers and take it seriously. You're talking about people smuggling, you're talking about drug trafficking, you're talking about money laundering, fraud, all the things which we, you know, anti-terrorism, things on which we really, really rely. Only today we're reminded that the number of children, sex slaves, etc., being trafficked into this country is actually rising. We need these powers and we need this cooperation. So, well, you have to fight terrible rearguard actions within the coalition, don't you? But one thing on which I believe Nick Clegg and David Cameron do agree is the desirability of trying to keep the financial contributions to the EU budget down. What they obviously disagree about fundamentally is how, well, everything, all the other EU policies, but also how you should negotiate from within the EU. You've got to be in there arguing your case inside.
The fact is, with the exception of Ken Clarke, the Tories now in Parliament are a wholly Eurosceptic party. Indeed, if anything, they're more than Eurosceptic. And Mr. Cameron is now under huge pressure. And he doesn't quite know what to do, I would suggest, which is why kind of dog whistle words like a fresh mandate, not saying referendum. What does he do?
Well, the Cabinet is pretty much Eurosceptic to a man, with the exception of Ken Clarke. However, that is not the same as saying that they want to leave the European Union. You know, this lot are not going to give the British public a vote on in and out. And so what they go around doing is, you know, stirring things up, giving a hint that there might be a referendum on this and they might put their foot down.
So where does that lead to?
Well, of course, eventually it will lead to another lot of disappointment because people are not going to get a referendum anytime soon. And by that, I mean, Cameron's position is we can't have a referendum until the Eurozone issue is settled down. Well, I'm not sure the Eurozone situation will settle down.
That's way through the next election.
In a decade, I don't think. So, I mean, this thing will be postponed and postponed and postponed. Now, it also takes you to the strategic question. You know, is David Cameron now about positioning the party on the middle ground, which is the point on which he won the leadership of the Conservative Party?
And which is where his speech suggested he wants to be.
Or is he now, not only with the Euro thing, but also with the burglars' charter, you know, the anti-burglars' charter. You know, is he appealing for the vote on the right? And you might say, well, of course, he's trying to do a bit of both. But actually, the signal that comes out, I think, is pretty confused.
But what should Labour do, Alistair, on the Europe issue?
Well, I hope they don't push too far on this referendum route, because I just don't think it's sensible.
There must be some voices in the Labour Party saying, look, we could squash the Tories here.
But I think I
Put in our
agree with
manifesto.
Miranda. I think it is one of those issues where all of the parties have to view it from their genuine assessment of the national interest. And my worry about Cameron at the moment is he's just kind of stumbling along. To have Michael Gove, who's obviously quite a senior minister in the Cabinet, saying that he actually doesn't mind if we come out of Europe, and for there to be no sense of pushback on that from Cameron, it's almost like he's allowing this debate.
The weasel way that was done too. Mr. Gove hasn't said a word.
No.
It was all done through what we think was a special advisor on this issue. But won't you all be like headless chickens in 2014 if UKIP comes first in the European elections and your lot come fifth?
OK, but
that'll be interesting.
You have to withstand it. You have
to carry on. I think this is right. You have to actually just doggedly keep arguing for what you think is in the national interest.
General election, that's not going to happen.
No, I mean, you know, the Greens have won European elections
the year before the general election.
But what you have to keep focus on is, yes, you may sacrifice 4% of the national vote to UKIP in a general election, but it's much more important to go for 10 or 15% in the middle ground of politics. You've just got to keep focused on that.
My hope on Cameron is that because he does have to go to these summits, and even though they're wretched and they're difficult and the rest of it, I think he's been there long enough now to know that actually he does have to do a lot of the work that he does at that level with these other leaders. And the idea of Britain kind of being out of that is, I think, catastrophic.
Well, interesting, the voice of moderation in this is now William Hague. He's gone native in the Foreign Office, and the Tory Eurosceptics are furious because he used to be the spokesman.